right, so this is the second video of Objective 2, and it's really the heart of the objective. It's solving quadratic equations by factoring, and this is where we're actually going to do what the objective asks us to do. So in the last section of the last video, you looked at things that were multiplying to equal 0, and you found the answers by setting each factor equal to 0. So these were all of these were in factored form. So now we're going to look at what happens when it's not in factored form. And so here are your steps. You're going to get the equation equal to 0. Then you're going to factor the resulting trinomial. Then you're going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. And then you're going to check your answer. So really, we're not adding anything new. Everything you've done before, you've gotten equations equal to 0 before, or at least solved equations and moved things. You have factored resulting trinomials. You just set factors equal to 0 and solved. So it's all pretty basic stuff that you've done. We're just putting it all together. So let's look at number 1. We see first that it is already equal to 0. Great. So now we can just go through and factor the left-hand side. So we see that we have a 12 and a 7. So I'm just going to make my little X puzzle over here. I'm going to put my 12 on the top. I'm going to put my 7 on the bottom. And I'm going to think, all right, what are my factors of 12 that will add to 7? So if you need a list, make a list. You have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. And in that list, I see that 3 and 4 will add to 7. I know I'm adding because C is positive, and I know that they'll both be positive because 7 is positive, or B is positive. So then I'm going to write X plus 3 times X plus 4, and we're still equal to 0. Since I have a product of two terms equal to 0, that means that X plus 3 equals 0, or X plus 4 equals 0. Solving, I get that. I minus 3. So X is equal to negative 3. And I minus the 4. So I get X is equal to negative 4. To check it, all I need to do is plug those X's into my equation. Remember that you're going to check them both. So we'll check X equals negative 3 first. So we'll have negative 3 squared plus 7 times negative 3 plus 12. Negative 3 squared is 9 plus negative 21 plus 12. 9 plus negative 21 is negative 12 plus 12 is equal to 0. So that one checks out. Then we check X equals negative 4. So we'll have negative 4 squared plus 7 times negative 4 plus 12. So that's 16 plus negative 28 plus 12. And 16 plus negative 28 will be negative 12 plus 12, which is 0. And that checks out. It is important to remember that you don't plug both X's into a different X. You check one at a time. Don't check them both at the same time. If you check them both at the same time, then you're not going to get 0 and think that you did something wrong. If your original equation was not equal to 0, then you would want it to be equal to whatever it was equal to and just plug in. I always recommend plugging into the original equation so that if you did something wrong at the bottom, it'll show wrong in the check. If you check from right here and you solved each individual factor correctly, and then you plug it into your factoring, you're going to get 0, but it might still be wrong if you factored wrong. So I always check from the original equation. All right, so I went into the other box a little bit, so let's move that over. And let's do another one. Let's see. Let's actually do one that's not equal to 0. So let's do number 3. So the first thing we notice is that we are indeed not equal to 0. We are equal to negative 15. So we need to get it equal to 0 first. So since it's negative, we're just going to make it positive because that would make 0. And we'll add the 15 over here. Since 15 doesn't have an X on it, it's not going to get combined with anything because they don't have like terms. So X squared minus 8X plus 15 is equal to 0. now we're going to factor that. So we make our x puzzle. We have 15 and we have negative 8. Thinking of my factors of 15, I have 1 and 15 and 2, not 2, 3 and 5. Since C was positive after I moved it over, that meant that I needed to add my factors. So I know it's 3 and 5. Since B is negative, I'm going to make them both negative. So then I have x minus 3 times x minus 5, and that's equal to 0. Setting each factor equal to 0, I see that x is equal to 3 and x is equal to 5. Now it's time to check it. So we're going to go back to our original equation to check. So we're going to check them separately again. So we're going to check x equals 3, and we're going to plug that into the original equation. So 3 squared minus 8 times 3, and we want to see, is that equal to negative 15? So 3 squared is 9, minus 8 times 3 is 24, and we're still looking to see, is that equal to negative 15? 9 minus 24 is negative 15, and that's equal to negative 15, so that checks out. I always go back to the original in the event that you accidentally moved something over wrong. For this one, if you moved the 15 over and kept it negative, you wouldn't be able to factor it, so you would know something was wrong, but that's not always the case. So it's always good to check back with the original problem first. So now we'll check x is equal to 5. So we'll have 5 squared minus 8 times 5, and we want to know is that equal to negative 15. 5 squared is 25, and we're going to minus 40, and does that equal to negative 15? Which it does. Negative 25 minus 40 is negative 15, so we know that one checked out as well. So we can go ahead and box in our answers. So we're just going to do one more together. Let's look at number 5. So number 5 is, again, not equal to 0. So we know that we need to move our 41 over. Since it's positive, we will subtract 41. And we notice that there's an A, a B, and a C over here. So we know that we can minus the 41 from the C value. So before there wasn't a constant to subtract from, so we couldn't. But for this one, since we do have a constant over there, we do want to make sure that we combine our like terms. So you have x squared minus 4x minus 45 is equal to 0. So notice that 4 is negative. So you're actually going to add 41 and 4 and not subtract. So now we are going to factor that. So we're going to make our x puzzle. We have negative 45 and negative 4. So factors of 45 that are going to subtract to give us negative 4. Since C is negative, we do want to make sure that we subtract instead. So our factors of 45 are 1 and 45, 3 and 15, and 5 and 9. So we see that 5 and 9 will give us 4. And since 4 is negative, the bigger number will be negative. So it'll be negative 9 and positive 5. So we write our factors. X minus 9 times x plus 5, and that is equal to 0. Now we know that we can set each of them equal to 0. So x minus 9 equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0, which leaves me with x equals 9 and x equals negative 5. Performing our check, we are going to check the original again. So we're going to first check x is equal to 9. So we're going to have 9 squared minus 4 times 9 minus 4, and that's equal to 41, right? So we're going to see. So 9 squared is 81. Minus 4 times 9 is 36. Minus 4, and does that equal to 41? So 81 minus 36 minus 4 is indeed 41. So 41 is equal to 41. You could technically type this whole piece into your calculator, and actually I would recommend that. Makes the check a little bit faster so that you don't have to worry about the math. So check x equals to negative 5. So we're going to have negative 5 squared minus 4 times negative 5 minus 4. I don't have one equals to 41. So then that will be 25 plus 20 minus 4. And is that equal to 41? 25 plus 20 minus 4 is indeed 41. So we know that we have done it correctly. So again, you do want to make sure that you check back with the original problem just to be sure that you haven't made any other math mistakes. Because sometimes things will factor if the numbers are wrong. Most of the time they won't, but every now and again they will. So that is all you're doing. You are just literally going to make sure it's equal to 0, factor it, set the factors equal to 0, and then check. So now go ahead and work the rest of these examples, then jump back and see if you got them correct. So here are the rest of the answers on that page. That's a really poor 8 that I wrote up here. So go ahead and check, make sure you've gotten them all correct. The only one that I see that's a little different that we haven't done, and it's one of the newer factoring pieces, and that is x squared minus 16 equals 0. So let's zoom in on that one for a quick second. It is one of those difference of square ones. So remember when you're factoring that, if you remember the pattern, great. If not, make yourself a little X puzzle and put the negative 16 at top. And then since there's no B value, it's a 0 down at the bottom. So you would think, okay, what multiplies to be negative 16 and adds to be 0? And that would be negative 4 and 4. So your factors would be x minus 4 and x plus 4 equal to 0. And that's how you would factor that one. That one I think is the only one that's trickier in there. Everything else, you just make sure it's equal to 0, and then it should be a straightforward factor like we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure that you didn't, but it's fine. Go ahead and hop over to Canvas, see what other practice there is for you to do, and have a great rest of your day.